how have you seen the CDMO industry shift in the last 10 years, and how do you think it will shift in the next 10 years? And we'll start with you.
Look, I think if you look at the DCATs that I was attending 20 years ago, they were very lively, they were interesting, there were always, I think, a lot of good interactions. But I think the maturity of the industry was nothing compared to where we are today, right? So if you look at just in the last few years, the new modalities that have come in, the proliferation of CDMOs offering tailored services, the types of technologies that we're applying at commercial scale today, which we weren't doing 20 years ago, it's a completely different level. And I think that gives us a lot of confidence. It also gives us confidence in mankind, frankly speaking. The fact that we've been able to have these developments, but not just match the developments and the science with, to say, oh, wow, we have cool science, but we've actually been able to turn it into tangible medicines. I think this is fabulous. And I think manufacturing is often in pharma companies thought of as an afterthought, but it isn't actually. Because what we're able to do is enable pharma companies to focus on these R&D developments that do these new modalities and these new molecules that we're able to then bring to market through our manufacturing might. I think this is something that us as a manufacturing industry can be quite proud of. And I think that is the trend that we're seeing, moving away from, these high volume molecules in the past to more specialized therapies now, other than, of course, the GLP-1s, and those are really moving in another direction. And this is fabulous, like I say, for patients as a whole.
So it's always good to tell your colleague it was right. So Arul was right. 10 years ago, we were definitely not seen as something which was as mainstream in the supply chain as we are today. I'm only CDMO. I've been doing CDMO for the last two decades, and for me, it's really been about the focus. We know what we're doing in that space. You bring us, that formula, you bring us that gene request, and then we can get you from there to vial. And that's really what you see when you're looking at a really good CDMO. And we can just do that now. But now this is seen as the norm. I think COVID also helped as well when we saw the level of reaction that the joke you used to have with large pharma was that a CDMO is doing in a week what it takes a month to get done in a large pharma company, because we have to, and because we're so focused on what we need to do. So now what you see is, and this for me is brilliant, because this is what you want, the pharma companies don't spend your money on manufacturing assets, which probably only 1 in 5 of them you'll actually use for what you built it for in the first place. Let us build the flexible multi-purpose plants and run them. You go and do all the really, really cool stuff around coming up with these molecules, finding different ways to treat patients, make sure we understand. So I think we've just proved it again, track record, we've been able to demonstrate that. But I just think we're in a really good position now of being able to springboard off that, and each of us are invested where we need to. Then you've got speed, drugs are getting to patients much quicker. That's the key in everything that we do.
If working with AXPLORA were a movie genre, what would it be?
But it's quite interesting, right? So everyone likes action movies, and people think, oh, this is great, and whatever else. But frankly speaking, in manufacturing, that's probably the last thing you want. You don't want James Bond types in manufacturing. What we want is reproducibility, repeatability, but probably going back to what I talked about earlier, anticipating what customers need, right? And so really getting ahead and prophesizing almost what is required. So if you think about it that way, probably the ones that are running right now, the Dune series, that's probably as good a movie as any, right? Because that's really talking about how someone like a Paul Atreides is anticipating the needs and anticipating what's coming next. And that's, I think, where we'd like to be as a company. And that's we're well on the journey towards being.
It's really cool that you mentioned science fiction, because that's one of the things I tell my family and my friends when I talk to them and tell them about what I do is, I said that we make molecules, drugs, they go off looking around the body, they find cancer cells and then release, not just once and sometimes in the future twice, things that get rid of those cancer cells. That's what we're doing on a daily basis. If that's not science fiction, I don't know what is. Remember, that's what we're actually doing. That's what we're all here for. You talk about pots and pans and labs and all the other stuff, but what we're actually making, that's why I talked about let us do our bit, because we can't do the bit that finds these really cool molecules. You go do your bit, because they're just awesome. which when you think about it, it's like they're literally just going there. Your body is the biggest biomanufacturing factory, or the best biomanufacturing on the planet, and we're just helping it do what it needs to do a little bit better and in a more targeted way. Side effects are reduced. We've got second lines of treatment. Perhaps if someone has something that the first line of treatment is not working on, we're now developing some molecules that have, as I said, not one but two payloads on them. It's crazy when I think about it. I think that's a cool example.
If AXPLORA had a superpower as a CDMO, what would it be, and how would it help your customers win?
Oh, I'm quite I'm quite a big superhero fan, and but I'm gonna have to break from the Marvel position. We're not into superpowers. We're more your Batman. We're the ones who've got the cool gadgets to get you to be able to develop what you want to do. We're the ones who you come and you'll see all our cool things, and like it's just going to be a great experience to work with us. And it's cool to do what we do, and you know, sometimes you don't need superpowers to be able to do some of these things. All you need is a deep level of understanding, a cool level of tech, and then being able to apply that to the problems that are coming at you. I'm going to stop now because I'm not kind of jumping around and flying around in a cape. But if you think about it, all those little gadgets and things that got developed in like a Batman type universe, that's all the cool stuff that we've got to develop these molecules, manufacture them, analyze them, increasing levels of complexity all the time. You know, cancer's the bad guy here in many cases, and we're constantly, trying to find ways to beat it. And in many cases where, we're involved in doing that on a day-to-day basis. So, for me, that's the cool thing about what we do.
Gentlemen, thank you both so much for taking the time to speak with us. This was a great conversation.
Thanks very much.